A waitress's daughter told the vampire king her mom had the same mark and fate turned dark. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's return to the main character. The first thing anyone noticed about Lily Carter was her eyes, not because they were unusual in color, but because they carried a steadiness no 8-year-old should have learned so early. She stood quietly at the edge of the grand dining hall, small hands folded, sneakers scuffed from walking home in the rain, watching a world that had never been built for people like her or her mother. Her mom, Emily Carter, was moving between tables with the careful grace of someone who knew every step mattered, balancing plates, keeping her head down, doing everything right so no one would look too closely. Emily had learned long ago that attention was dangerous. Lily, however, had not learned that lesson yet. She felt him before she truly saw him. The man seated alone beneath the chandelier that cast a pale glow over silverware and crystal glasses. Lucian Ashcroft did not need to speak or move for the room to bend around him. Even those who did not know his true nature lowered their voices, slowed their steps, and felt a chill they could not explain. Lily studied him with open curiosity, the way children look at storms through windows, aware of the danger but drawn to the power. She tugged gently at her mother's sleeve, whispering that someone looked lonely, and Emily's heart tightened because loneliness was something she recognized too well. She told Lily to stay close, to be quiet, to wait just a moment longer, because moments were all Emily ever had to give. But fate rarely waits for permission. Lily stepped forward when Emily turned her back, her small shoes making no sound on the polished floor. She stopped a few feet from Lucian, tilting her head as if measuring something invisible. He noticed her then, not as a threat, not as a subject, but as a presence that did not fit the patterns he had memorized over centuries. Children usually avoided him. This one did not. Lily's voice was soft, polite, and clear, the way her mother had taught her. She told him she liked his ring because it looked old, older than anything in the museum downtown, and Lucian felt a faint ripple of surprise pass through him. Then she said the sentence that would fracture the night. She told him her mom had the same mark. She said it casually, as if speaking about freckles or a scar from falling off a bike, and added that her mom always said it meant they had to keep moving when the dreams came back. Lucian did not react the way the room expected. He did not stand. He did not speak. His fingers tightened slowly against the edge of the table as memory, sharp and unwelcome, pressed in from all sides. He had seen that mark once before, long ago, on a woman who had trusted him with her future and paid a terrible price for believing fate could be changed. Across the room, Emily felt the air shift and turned just in time to see her daughter standing far too close to a man everyone else kept their distance from. Fear rose, not loud, but cold and precise. She moved toward Lily, unaware that with one innocent sentence, her past had reached out and found her again, and that the quiet life she had built mile by mile was already beginning to crack. Emily reached Lily in 3 quick steps, her smile practiced and calm even as her pulse raced. She apologized to Lucian in a soft voice, the tone of someone used to smoothing edges before they cut, and guided her daughter back toward the service corridor where the light dimmed and the air smelled faintly of coffee and soap. Lily did not resist, only looked over her shoulder once, curiosity still steady, as if she had merely pointed out a shared detail between strangers. Lucian watched them go without moving, the echo of the child's words settling into him like winter. Around him, the hall resumed its careful rhythm, but it did not touch him. He saw instead a different room, decades ago, candlelight trembling against stone, a woman turning her wrist to hide a mark she did not yet understand. He closed his hand slowly, mastering the memory before it could spill. Emily led Lily to the employee hallway, knelt to straighten her jacket, and whispered that some things were private and some people were not to be spoken to, not because they were unkind, but because they were heavy. Lily nodded, trusting, because she had learned early that trust kept them moving forward. Their life had always been measured in careful steps. Emily worked evenings at the diner off Riverside Drive. mornings cleaning offices downtown, and weekends covering shifts when someone did not show. Miles were counted by bus stops and cracked sidewalks, by how long it took Lily to finish homework on a laminated table, while Emily refilled coffee for strangers who rarely met her eyes. Rent was paid within 48 hours of the deadline. Groceries were planned to the dollar, and birthdays were celebrated with cupcakes from the discount bakery and a walk to the river. The mark had always been part of that careful planning. Emily had discovered it years earlier, a pale symbol near her collarbone that seemed to darken when storms rolled in or when she dreamed of places she had never been. Doctors called it a birthmark. Emily called it a reason to keep moving. Lily knew only that when her mother woke from those dreams, they changed apartments within the month. That night, as Emily clocked out and wrapped Lily in her jacket against the chill, she felt the familiar pull of unease sharpen. It was not fear exactly, but recognition, the sense that a door she had kept closed had heard its name. Across town, Lucian stood alone in a private room, city lights stretching like a map of lives he had watched rise and fade. His advisors would ask questions soon. They always did when the past stirred. He would tell them nothing yet. The law of his kind was clear about marks and bloodlines, about promises made under older skies. But the law did not account for children who spoke without guile, or for mothers who had survived by refusing to look back. He remembered the woman with the first mark, remembered how he had believed distance could protect her. Distance had only delayed the cost. He turned the ring on his finger once, grounding himself in the present, and made a decision that surprised. Even him. He would not summon. He would observe. In a small apartment 3 miles away, Emily tucked Lily into bed, listening to the city hum through thin walls. Lily asked if the lonely man was feeling better. Emily kissed her forehead and said everyone feels better after being seen. When the light went out, Emily sat on the edge of the bed and touched the place where the mark slept, knowing with quiet certainty that something had begun to watch them back. Morning arrived without ceremony, gray light slipping through the blinds and settling on the kitchen table where Emily counted bills with a pencil worn down to the wood. The numbers did not change no matter how carefully she added them, and she accepted that with the quiet patience of someone who had learned to make peace with limits. Lily ate cereal and traced shapes on the table with her spoon, humming softly, the tune drifting in and out like a thought. Emily watched her, heart easing, until the mark stirred. It was subtle, a warmth beneath the skin, the kind that could be mistaken for memory or nerves, but Emily knew better. She wrapped her cardigan tighter and told herself it was only the weather. Across the city, Lucian observed from a distance that required no physical closeness. He did not follow in shadows or send messengers. Instead, he listened to patterns, the way the city breathed around certain people. He noted the bus route Emily took, the hours she worked, the way Lily's laughter spiked the air when she ran ahead on the sidewalk. None of it broke any law. All of it felt like standing at the edge of a river he had crossed before, knowing the current remembered him. Emily's shift at the diner passed in familiar motions. Coffee refills, polite smiles, the low hum of conversation. Lily sat at the counter with a coloring book, greeting regulars who slipped her $1 for the jukebox. Near noon, a man asked Emily if she had ever considered moving somewhere warmer. She laughed it off, but the question lodged, echoing an old instinct to pack and go. The mark warmed again, just once, like a warning bell rung softly. When Lily looked up and said she felt funny, Emily's chest tightened. She knelt, checked her forehead, asked about dizziness, hunger, thirst. Lily shook her head and said it felt like standing near a thunderstorm without rain. Emily closed her eyes for a count of 3 and decided they would leave early. Outside, the sky was clear. That unsettled her more than clouds. Lucian felt the same shift from a high floor where the city unfolded in clean lines. He remembered the rule he had once broken, the belief that knowledge alone could protect those who carried the mark. He had been wrong then. He would not repeat the error by acting too soon or too late. He made a call to an associate who understood silence, asking only for confirmation of a pattern he already knew. The answer came measured and careful, confirming that the mark had not been seen publicly in years, that it had not faded. That fate, once named, tended to circle back. Emily and Lily took the long way home, stopping at the river to watch the water move past rocks without hesitation. Lily skipped stones and asked if people could choose where they ended up or if places chose them first. Emily answered honestly, saying it was both, and that choosing kindness mattered even when the map was unclear. Lily nodded, satisfied. As evening settled, Emily cooked pasta and listened to the building creak, every sound familiar. She did not see the black car parked across the street, engine off, lights dark, present without pressure. Lucian did not step out. He watched the window where a child's silhouette moved, then disappeared. He felt the old weight settle and accepted it. Some stories did not announce themselves with disaster. Some began with observation, patience, and the quiet knowledge that once a mark was recognized, it would ask to be answered. In the small apartment, Emily stood before the bathroom mirror and looked at the place she never let anyone see. The symbol rested there, calm now, as if it had achieved its purpose. She whispered that they would be ready, whatever came, and turned off the light. The following day unfolded with a precision that felt rehearsed, as if the city itself had decided to test Emily's resolve. At the diner, a power outage forced an early closure, and Emily accepted the lost hours without complaint, packing Lily's things and stepping back into the bright afternoon. They walked the 6 blocks home, counting crosswalk signals, Lily skipping ahead and narrating the world with cheerful authority. Emily tried to match her pace, but the warmth beneath her skin returned, stronger now, a quiet insistence that refused to be ignored. She remembered the first time she had felt it years ago, alone in a different city, holding a bus ticket and a promise she did not yet understand. Back then, she had chosen distance. Today, distance felt thinner. Lucian spent the morning reviewing records that were never meant to be read by modern eyes. Names, dates, cities that no longer existed in the same way. Each entry marked a crossing, a consequence, a pattern that ended the same way if left to chance. He did not search for Emily Carter by name. He searched for the mark's behavior, for the way it reacted to proximity, to recognition. The confirmation arrived without drama. The mark responded to truth, especially when spoken plainly by someone unguarded. A child, he thought, would do that. Emily cooked lunch and listened to Lily talk about school projects and library cards, nodding and smiling while her mind ran inventory. She found their documents in the drawer where she kept things she might need to grab quickly. Birth certificates, a small envelope of cash, the address of a friend 2 states away who owed her a favor. She told herself she was being careful, not afraid. In the afternoon, a knock sounded at the door, measured and patient. Emily froze, then breathed out, and opened it to find the building manager with a clipboard, asking about a maintenance issue. Relief washed through her, followed by embarrassment at herself. She signed and closed the door, leaning her forehead against the wood until Lily asked if she was okay. Emily said yes, because saying no would make it real. Across town, Lucian chose a different approach. He entered a public space where Emily would not feel cornered, a small park near the river where families gathered and the noise blurred intentions. He arrived early and sat on a bench with a book he did not need, watching the current and the sky. When Emily and Lily appeared, it was not fate pulling strings so much as habit guiding feet. Lily spotted the river first and tugged her mother toward the water, talking about skipping stones again. Lucian waited. When Lily wandered closer, curious and unafraid, he greeted her with the same respect. He would offer an adult. He asked about the stones. She showed him a smooth one and said it worked best if you believed it would skip. Emily reached them, tension rising, and recognized him instantly. The air shifted, not with threat, but with acknowledgement. Lucian spoke carefully, explaining he had a question and would leave if she asked. He did not mention the mark. He asked instead about storms without rain, about warmth that came and went, about dreams that suggested movement. Emily's answers were cautious, then honest. Lily listened, satisfied, as if adults were finally saying what she already knew. Lucian thanked Emily for her time and stood, offering no demands, only clarity. Some marks, he said, were invitations to choice, not sentences. He left before Emily could decide how to respond, because some decisions needed quiet. As dusk settled, Emily walked home with Lily, heart steady despite the questions circling. She did not know what came next. She knew only that the mark had been seen and the world had not ended. That felt like the beginning of something heavier and somehow survivable. The days after the park meeting settled into a strange calm that felt borrowed rather than earned. Emily returned to work, Lily returned to school, and the city returned their rhythms as if nothing had shifted, yet the warmth beneath Emily's skin pulsed with a new regularity, like a clock she had never owned. She noticed small changes, the way conversations paused when she entered certain spaces, the way strangers seemed to look twice, and then look away, unsure why they had noticed her at all. Lily sensed it too and asked if they were being followed by the weather, because the air felt different even when the sky was blue. Emily smiled and said the city was full of moods. Across the river, Lucian convened a quiet meeting in a room without windows, not because he feared being seen, but because tradition mattered to those who would speak there. Advisors gathered, voices measured, questions careful. They did not accuse. They reminded. Marks were not decorations. They were contracts written by time, and contracts carried costs. Lucian listened without interruption, acknowledging the old logic while refusing its conclusion. He did not deny the danger of recognition. He denied inevitability. The advisors exchanged looks that carried centuries of precedent and the weight of outcomes recorded. And repeated. A child's presence complicated their certainty. Innocence did not nullify law, but it changed how law was remembered. Emily received a letter that afternoon, addressed neatly, offering a consultation about a scholarship program for Lily that she had never applied for. It named a school near the river, modest but well-regarded, and included a phone number that rang only once before a calm voice asked for her availability. Emily declined politely, unsettled by generosity that arrived without explanation. She walked Lily home and chose a different route, testing the city's patience. The warmth eased when she decided not to run. That night, Lucian stood on a bridge and watched the water carry reflections downstream. He considered the simplest path, the one history approved. It would require distance, erasure, and silence. He rejected it without drama. He remembered the first mark and the mistake of believing protection meant absence. He would not repeat that error by pretending care could be clean. He arranged safeguards that did not announce themselves, patterns that bent risk without trapping choice. Emily dreamed of standing in a train station she had never visited, Lily's hand warm in hers, the mark quiet for once. She woke before dawn and wrote a list of rules for herself that fit on a single index card. Tell the truth when asked plainly. Do not confuse caution with fear. Choose places with light. In the morning, Lily asked if they could go to the river again after school. Emily said yes. At the river, Lucian appeared not as an interruption but as a constant that had always been there. He kept his distance, greeting them with a nod, speaking of ordinary things, the water level, the way seasons turned without apology. He explained, carefully, that attention would increase, not because of them, but because some stories drew witnesses when named. He said there were councils who would prefer the past repeat itself. He said there were others who would watch and wait. Emily asked what he wanted. Lucian answered honestly. He wanted the chance to choose differently this time. Lily skipped a stone and watched it dance. She said the river liked it when people tried. Emily felt the warmth steady, no longer urgent, simply present. As the sun dipped, she understood that the mark had not brought darkness by being seen. It had brought questions. And questions, she knew, could be answered without surrender. The shift from questions to consequences came quietly, the way weather changes without asking permission. Emily noticed it first in small inconveniences that stacked too neatly to be coincidence. A bus route temporarily suspended, a landlord announcing inspections with little notice, a coworker suddenly unavailable on the one night Emily needed coverage. None of it felt threatening on its own, but together it pressed like a reminder that attention, once drawn, did not easily drift away. Lily adapted without complaint, turning detours into games and asking thoughtful questions that landed closer to truth than Emily liked. She asked why grown-ups argued about rules that did not make people safer and why promises mattered more when they were old. Emily answered as best she could, choosing honesty that did not burden. Lucian felt the pressure from the other side, where patience was considered weakness and precedent carried weight. Messages arrived that spoke in careful language about balance and responsibility, about how marks were meant to be resolved, not debated. He responded with the same care, asserting oversight without provocation, reminding them that outcomes changed when choices did. He increased his watch without tightening it, placing protection that looked like coincidence, a streetlight repaired overnight, a crossing guard reassigned, a doctor appointment that opened at the right time. Emily sensed the net without seeing the knots. She accepted help when it appeared ordinary and declined when it felt like debt. One afternoon, Lily came home with a permission slip for a field trip to the historical museum by the river. Emily hesitated, then signed, telling herself that refusing every opportunity taught fear. The day of the trip dawned clear. Emily walked Lily to the bus and watched it pull away, heart steady until the warmth stirred again, not sharp, but focused, as if pointing. At the museum, Lily paused before a display of old maps and symbols, tracing a familiar shape with her finger and asking the guide why some signs repeated across centuries. The guide offered an answer about human patterns. Lily accepted it and moved on, satisfied. Lucian stood in a private gallery, reading a plaque he had commissioned long ago under another name, and felt the alignment click into place. This was how it happened, not with alarms, but with resonance. Emily spent the morning cleaning offices, her thoughts circling the same decision she had been postponing. She called the school by the river and asked about enrollment, not committing, only learning. When Lily returned, bright with stories, Emily listened and cooked dinner and decided they would stay for now. That night, Lucian requested a meeting with Emily on neutral ground, offering daylight and choice. She agreed, bringing Lily, because separation felt like surrender. They met at a community center where voices overlapped and intentions softened. Lucian explained the pressure plainly, naming councils and customs without dramatizing them. He acknowledged risk without predicting doom. He asked for consent to continue watching, not ownership. Emily asked what protection cost. Lucian said it cost courage and patience, not obedience. Lily drew pictures on scrap paper and offered one to Lucian, a river with stepping stones. He thanked her and said it was accurate. As they parted, Emily felt the warmth settle into a steady presence, no longer urging escape. She understood that safety would not come from hiding or defiance alone, but from choosing a path that allowed witnesses. Lucian watched them leave and accepted the narrowing road ahead. Some stories demanded stewardship rather than control. This one, he knew, would test whether law could learn from kindness without losing itself. Pressure condensed into clarity as the week advanced, not louder but closer, like walls painted the same color until distance disappeared. Emily felt it in the way schedules tightened and options narrowed, in the polite firmness of systems that usually bent. A school administrator requested a meeting to discuss Lily's transfer, citing opportunity and alignment. A clinic rescheduled an appointment 3 times before offering an earlier slot that solved a problem Emily had not voiced. None of it crossed a line, yet each nudge carried intention. Lily noticed patterns the way children do, without fear, asking why adults liked circles so much and why choices seemed to come in pairs. Emily answered that circles help people remember where they started, and Lily said then maybe lines were better if you wanted to go somewhere new. Lucian felt the circle closing too, measured and procedural. The council did not summon him. They issued findings, conclusions framed as inevitabilities, suggestions that read like instructions. Marks demanded resolution. Witnesses multiplied risk. Time, they insisted, favored tradition. Lucian responded with restraint, acknowledging their concerns while refusing their premise. He offered transparency without surrender, oversight without erasure. He expanded protections subtly, ensuring the ordinary remained ordinary. When Emily walked Lily to school, the crosswalk's signal changed on cue. When Lily lingered by the river after class, the water level was calm, the stones dry. Emily understood the care without feeling owned by it. One evening, Lily asked to invite a friend over, and Emily agreed, surprised by her own ease. The apartment filled with laughter and crayons and the smell of pasta, and the Mark rested, content with the noise of living. That night, Lucian reviewed a final report that laid out consequences with the patience of a ledger. It predicted outcomes if the Mark remained acknowledged. It suggested distance as mercy. He set it aside. He chose instead to visit a place where law met memory, a public archive where records slept behind glass. He stood before a display that described cycles and reforms, how societies learned by failing safely. He wrote a letter in careful language, addressed not to a council but to a future reader, committing to stewardship over repetition. He did not send it yet. Emily received an invitation for Lily to present a small project at the museum by the river, a child's perspective on symbols and stories. Emily hesitated, then accepted, recognizing the shape of courage when it asked politely. On the day of the presentation, Lucian attended unnoticed among families and teachers. Lily spoke clearly about how symbols traveled because people carried them, and how meaning changed when someone decided to be kind instead of correct. The room listened. Emily felt the warmth steady into something like confidence. Afterward, Lucian approached with respect, congratulating Lily and thanking Emily for trusting a public moment. He warned that attention would sharpen after this, that patience would be tested. Emily nodded, asking the question she had been saving. What happens if the council insists? Lucian answered with the truth he had chosen. Then we insist on choice, publicly, together. Lily tugged Emily's sleeve and said lines were better than circles after all. As dusk fell, Emily walked home with Lily, aware that watchers were now witnesses, and witnesses changed stories. Lucian watched them go and accepted the risk he had embraced. When law pressed too tightly, it forgot why it existed. This time, he would remind it, not with force, but with a living example that refused to disappear. The night after the museum presentation felt heavier, not with threat, but with decision, the kind that settles into the bones and asks to be carried. Emily sat at the kitchen table while Lily slept, the city humming through thin walls, and reviewed the facts without embellishment. Attention had sharpened. Options had clarified. Running would teach Lily fear dressed as prudence. Staying would require visibility shaped by care. The mark rested warm and steady, no longer urging motion, as if waiting for her to speak first. Across the river, Lucian prepared for a meeting that would not fit neatly into any chamber. He chose a public forum adjacent to the river walk, a place with benches and lights and families who wandered through, a place where words would echo beyond the room. He invited the council to attend, not to preside, framing the gathering as an update on stewardship practices. Some accepted, some sent observers. He did not mind. Emily arrived with Lily, hands linked, heart quiet. Lucian greeted them with courtesy and space, making no promises he could not keep. When the council representatives spoke, their language was precise, emphasizing balance, caution, historical outcomes. They described the mark as a hinge upon which stability turned, suggesting measures that sounded humane while narrowing choice. Lucian listened and then answered without raising his voice. He acknowledged the history. He acknowledged the risks. Then he named the difference. This mark was not isolated. It existed alongside a child who spoke plainly, a mother who chose kindness without spectacle, and a city that benefited when care was practiced openly. He proposed a covenant of observation without coercion, protection without displacement, accountability shared rather than imposed. The words carried because the setting did not hide them. Emily spoke once, briefly, saying she would not consent to erasure masquerading as safety. She said her daughter would not be moved like a problem to be solved. Lily added that stones skipped better when you trusted the water, not when you tried to force it. A ripple moved through the onlookers, not applause, but attention aligning. The council representatives conferred quietly, weighing optics as much as outcomes. Tradition pressed. Precedent pulled. Lucian offered the final choice plainly. Accept the covenant publicly, or force a decision that would be seen for what it was. Silence followed, long enough to feel earned. The acceptance came measured, conditional, real. Oversight would remain. Distance would not be required. The mark would be acknowledged as active, but not condemned. Emily felt the warmth shift, not flaring, not fading, simply integrating, like breath after holding it too long. After the meeting, dusk softened the river. Lucian walked with Emily and Lily along the path, explaining boundaries and expectations in clear terms. He promised presence without intrusion. He promised truth without drama. Emily promised to remain reachable and honest, to ask before assuming, to choose light. Lily asked if this meant they were done. Lucian smiled and said it meant they were beginning carefully. As they parted, Emily understood the weight she carried had changed shape. It was still there, but it fit. Lucian watched them go, aware that choosing publicly had consequences he would bear. The mark pulsed once, then settled, as if agreement had been recorded somewhere older than law. The city continued its noise, unaware that a rule had bent without breaking. In a small apartment, Emily tucked Lily in and turned off the light, knowing that tomorrow would bring watchfulness and work and ordinary joys. She slept without dreaming of trains. Lucian returned to the bridge and released the letter he had written, sending it forward as record rather than warning. Fate did not turn dark that night. It clarified, and in clarity, a different future found its footing. Morning arrived clean and ordinary, which felt like a gift after weeks of careful attention. Emily walked Lily to school, counting the seconds of the crosswalk and smiling at the crossing guard who now knew Lily's name. The warmth beneath Emily's skin was present but calm, like a compass that had settled. Lily chatted about an upcoming science fair and whether rivers remembered the stones that skipped across them. Emily answered that rivers remembered movement more than impact. Work followed its usual cadence. Plates, receipts, polite exchanges. What changed was not the day, but Emily's posture within it. She no longer scanned exits first. She noticed sunlight on stainless steel and the way kindness multiplied when returned. Across town, Lucian completed the final steps of the covenant. Signatures recorded, terms clarified in language that favored care over control. He did not celebrate. He marked the moment and moved forward. The council would watch. So would he. Watching, he had learned, could be an act of protection rather than possession. In the afternoon, Emily received confirmation of Lily's enrollment at the school by the river, not as a favor, but as a result of transparent criteria. She accepted with gratitude that did not feel like debt. When Lily came home, they taped the letter to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a star. Lily asked if this meant they were staying. Emily said yes, for now, and meant it without reservation. That evening, Lucian joined them at the river walk, not as a guardian hovering, but as a neighbor sharing space. They sat on a bench as dusk cooled the air. Lucian spoke of boundaries and timelines, of how attention would ebb and flow, of how some questions would return wearing new faces. Emily listened and asked what he would do if the rules tightened again. Lucian answered that he would choose the same thing he chose before, publicly and with witnesses. Lily skipped stones and counted the hops, declaring a personal best. She handed Lucian a smooth pebble and said it was for luck. He accepted it seriously. As night settled, the city lights came on one by one, a constellation built by ordinary hands. Emily felt the mark rest, integrated into her sense of self rather than hovering as threat. She understood now that fate was not a sentence but a conversation, and conversations required honesty, patience, and the courage to stay present. Lucian walked them home and stopped at the corner, offering space as a sign of respect. He watched the window light blink on and felt a quiet satisfaction that did not resemble victory. It resembled stewardship. Days passed. The science fair arrived. Lily presented a project about patterns in water and choice, explaining how small decisions redirected flow. Judges nodded. Emily clapped. Lucian observed from the back, anonymous and attentive. Afterward, Lily hugged her mother and said she liked lines better than circles because lines could become bridges. Emily laughed and held her close. That night, Emily stood at the mirror and touched the place where the mark lived. It did not glow or darken. It simply was. She turned off the light and slept without dreams. Lucian returned to the bridge and looked down at the river carrying reflections toward places unseen. He understood that the future would test this covenant, that care would need renewing. He also understood that kindness, once witnessed, altered the ledger. In choosing to stand with a mother and a child, he had allowed law to learn from life. The city breathed, the river moved, and a story that once promised darkness ended instead with a quiet truth, that even ancient power could be guided by compassion without losing itself.